Okay, guys, this is going to be my Wonder Woman 1984 review. With spoilers, yeah, I guess if you haven't seen the film, probably don't watch this. But, what are my thoughts on Wonder Woman 1984? I'm very split on this film. There's certain aspects I love. I love the characters in this film. I think the characters are very multi-dimensional. So I really enjoy the characters in this film. But at the same time, I don't necessarily love the character's role in this film. Where it's like, take the character of Cheetah for example, who who um who Barbara in this film is a very interesting character, but they don't do much with her with the sake of the story, because they're kind of building up this plot line with Barbara about becoming the Cheetah, becoming, who she I guess was meant to be, but they don't really once she becomes Cheetah, she doesn't really have much to do. I think that happens with a lot of the characters. You bring Steve Trevor back, which brings the idea of bringing Steve Trevor back. I didn't love the idea of bringing Steve back, but I was okay with it. But the execution was poor because when you bring someone back from 1917 or 1919 or something in that era of World War I, they don't just come back and expect to know everything. I just don't think they did enough ground building, um, for bringing Steve back, in the sense where Steve would be like, well, "What's this? What's that?" And he sort of was, but not to its full reality of the situation. Because when you come back from a completely different era, you're not just like, okay, okay, okay. See, I think he was more confident than you would think, but I get why they didn't go through the whole process of like, oh yeah, that's a phone, or oh yeah, that's a TV. I get why they wouldn't do all of that, because for the sake of the story has nothing to do with Steve Trevor learning what all this stuff is in the 80s. But I don't think they did a good enough job for to understand what Steve's been through and why he came back. And I mean, we know why he came back, but to 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 see his reaction to coming back, and plus we didn't really see what Diana really thought. And I think Diana reacted very weirdly, because he's just like, oh, Steve's back. Oh yeah, and she didn't really ask much questions. Like I would ask, like how did that happen? Because how would she have known that that stone really was the source of bringing Steve back? I don't know if she would, maybe, and I don't know wouldn't she ask, like, how did you come back? What did you do? And they didn't make it that clear. Like, does Steve in someone else's body, or does Diana see someone else's face, or does everybody else see a different face? They weren't fully clear about the science behind bringing Steve back. But again, I'll give them a pass in some ways, because that's not really what the story is about. The story is not bring Steve Trevor back, the film. It's Wonder Woman 1984, the movie. And I think, yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of 1980s references, but not as much as you would think. Like, when you think of setting in 1984, you think you're going to get a lot of 1984 or 80s references. And there definitely was some, but not what you would think. Not not Captain Marvel level. Like Captain Marvel, there were like a lot of references, and I'm not here to compare, obviously, but I don't think I like this film as much as the first Wonder Woman. I think the first Wonder Woman was really special. I think this film was good, and the action was good. Some cheesy moments throughout the film, some campy moments. But again, I don't think they handled Cheetah very well. And I do think Steve Trevor was just thrown to give our main character support, because when you think about this film, there's besides Diana, besides Wonder Woman and Steve, there's no real heroes in this film. Even in the first one, you had Diana, and you had Steve, and you had a bunch of the Amazonians, be main characters in the first act. In the second act, you have Steve's secretary, and then they go on the war, and and Diana works with Steve and his whole entire um, task force. But here it's just Diane and Steve. See, Barbara sort of starts out as a hero and then obviously turns into a villain. And I definitely think they rushed Cheetah, not like in the CGI terms, but rushed her in terms of, oh yeah, now she's a feline. Just go with it, you know what I mean? And it's like, immediate, so like literally, this is how it played out. Diana sees Barbara's Cheetah, and Diana's like, Barbara, what have you done? And then they immediately go to start fighting, and it's whatever. It is what it is. And I think they did more groundwork developing Barbara before she became Cheetah than they did after. Like once she became Cheetah, you're just like, okay, just go. And I do believe the third act was a bit rushed because they're kind of having this slow-paced build-up through the first couple of acts, and then you get to the third act where everybody's getting all their wishes, and Cheetah's now become Cheetah, and Diana's in the gold suit, and Steve's gone, and she can fly now. And then boom, Cheetah fights, boom, 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 up, all the wishes undone. I think they did a good job explaining why Maxwell Lord would return his wish, because that's what I was thinking of when they were starting, when Diana was trying to convince Max to unturn his wish. I was like, how are they gonna pull this off? How are they gonna convince me that Max would undo his wish? But then when you see it happens and you see how his connection and love for his son takes over beyond any wish, you're like, okay, it makes sense. They did the groundwork with him and his son that it made logical sense that, yeah, he would return his wish if it meant saving his son. And I think that's a part of the film that they did do the groundwork for, and they did have payoff for. And I like, about the whole Steve thing. Steve Trevor, is played greatly by Chris Pine. It's very funny, very cool. So I didn't mind that he came back. I'm fine he came back. It's just about, obviously, it takes away from the first Wonder Woman film, whatever. But I was fine that he came back. But it was just developing right. It's similar to how I felt about bringing Palpatine back. Bringing Emperor Palpatine back would not be the first thing I'd want to happen in a Star Wars film. Bringing him back after Return of the Jedi. It's not the first thing I want in a Star Wars film. But I'm fine with it. The problem is the execution. I think that's the same thing with bringing Steve Trevor back. The problem for me was not bringing him back, per se. It's the execution was not all there. And I think he was probably in it for, mostly the end of the first act, entirety of the second act. And then, obviously, Diana undid her wish, which, honestly, I think shows great development, and I think great, bold moves by the filmmaker's part, by Patty Jenkins' part. And I am very divided on this film. Overall, I like it, but I'm divided in the sense where I can point out big missed opportunities. And I think the problem is, here's what I think. Barbara didn't have to be in here. Cheetah did not have to be in this film. Because she's a secondary villain at the heart of it. And that's fine to have secondary villains. But then give them a lot of development in terms of... See, that's the thing. I guess what I'm trying to say is this whole film, for the most part, is divided into 3 different sections. The Steve and Diana part, the Cheetah part, and the Maxwell Lord stuff. Which makes this film 2.5 hours long. And you cut between, okay, what is Diana doing? Okay, what's Cheetah doing? Okay, what's Max doing? And I think that's fine, but when the payoff is not there, they had all the setup for something great, for some great character depth, about Cheetah and Wonder Woman's relationship, but they didn't go there because I think they were running out of time. If they gave a lot of development with the Steve and Diana relationship, the Cheetah and Wonder Woman relationship, the Cheetah and Max relationship, the father and son relationship. If they wanted to develop all these different mini relationships, well, this film would be over 3 hours long. So what I'm trying to say is, as good as I think as good as the barber character was in the first two acts, in hindsight, this film could have been good enough with just Maxwell Lord as the villain, because he's played greatly by Pedro Pascal. He's very multi functional. Um, yes. I think it was cheap for him to get his powers. Like, what's your wish? My wish is to have the ability to grant other people with wishes. Essentially, again, what they said in the film was, "Oh, my wish is to become the Dream Stone." That's essentially saying, like, going to a genie and saying, the genie's like, "What do you wish for, Aladdin?" And Aladdin's like, "I wish for more wishes." That's really what it was. It was a lame excuse to get Maxwell Lord to grant wishes all around. And honestly, I think the message of this film was neat. This idea of the truth. You should be good enough with the truth. I think the truth is good enough. I loved the opening scene of this film, but as good as the opening scene was, it had no point. Like, I'm watching the opening sequence of the film, and I'm like, okay, it's a cool sequence. And then in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, but what did the opening sequence really add? I think it was just an excuse to go to Themyscira. Like, they're like, how do we have a sequence in Themyscira? Well, let's just do a flashback sequence, which the sequence in and of itself was great, but it didn't really add much. And again, as you see these unnecessary scenes, you're like, it adds up to just a long movie with a lot of stuff that you could have cut, but also not necessarily cut, but get rid of the whole plot line. Because yes, I wouldn't cut anything out from Barbara's story, but Barbara's story as a whole I might have cut out. And not saying Cheetah wasn't cool, not saying Barbara wasn't cool, not saying the Cheetah vs. Wonder Woman fight wasn't cool. The Cheetah vs. Wonder Woman fight was amazing. But I would have liked more development in the undeveloped parts. In addition to the Wonder Woman and Cheetah relationship at the end, it was kind of rushed, kind of forced a little bit at the end. And I think this is a case of the parts are better than the sum of them. You know what I mean? Meaning each individual sequence is better than the film as a whole. And that's really what happens on mixed films. And I look at a film similar to, like, The Last Jedi, where there's so many great sequences in The Last Jedi, but the film as a whole was very mixed. And that's kind of what I feel like with this film. It's the culmination of all these sequences that are like, it didn't really work. But I still enjoyed it. I think it was still a fun ride, funny at times. And I think tonally it's very different from the first Wonder Woman film, which I can give a lot of that credit to Patty Jenkins, and I think she'll do great in a Rogue Squadron film, directing a new Star Wars film. I think that's exciting and that's great. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know much more to say than that. I mean, I enjoyed it. I think the good outweighed the bad, but it's one of those films where I could look back on it in a couple of years and be like, yeah, but the bad outweighs the good. And I think this will go down for me as kind of a Last Jedi situation, where I go back and forth. Do I like it? Do I not like it? Do I like it? Do I like it? Or do I like it or do I not? And I think I'll look back on it as like, I don't know. But yeah, I still enjoyed it though. Stay tuned for videos coming at you.